welcome. We're going to start today. We should have 2 people prepared for their little reflections on the Nativity of the Christ. We're going all the way back to Christmas Day, but we're going to finish that up. So who are our 2 people?
Paulie and Audie.
All right.
I sent it to PowerPoint.
Paulie, you first?
I had it should be.
It's a PowerPoint.
Oh,
It's a
I have it.
PowerPoint.
No, I sent it to you.
Mrs. Jenkins?
I can try.
Audie, do you want to go first while he's getting his set up? It's on a flash drive, same thing? It's a PowerPoint? It's a picture, okay. Can Audie use your computer to show? Like mine's streaming right now.
You could have emailed it.
I emailed it.
Your internet doesn't let you email things. Are you I don't want to. So you can't like go on.
I guess Paulie said he emailed his.
You can't like watch YouTube.
Come on up, Audie. If you bring your flash drive. Come on up.
I don't know why I was right.
Just get a new Wi-Fi router.
What?
You know, my Wi-Fi router crashes when there's like more than 8 people in the house. So you get all the Wi-Fi, including my PC and that's like crashes, and I'm like, Dad, we need to get better Wi-Fi. Over like every other day.
Okay, so bring it up and show it around so you can see it. Attention up here, please. Audie has his picture to show you.
Let's see this. I chose the lines, "O dying souls, behold your living spring." Just stood out a little bit. So I took winter because winter everything looks kind of dead, and then like transitioning into spring. So.
Mine is here. I should find one.
If you can launch your PowerPoint, there's a whole screen.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh.
All right. It's loaded. I chose this life, this light, this world, this joy repairs. So, like for example, I did a broken heart, and if you add like God's light, His life, and His word to your life or your heart, it will bring joy and it'll also fix your broken heart.
Question. I've seen like YouTube videos of that. Did you just like?
Nope, not at all.
So like you just look up.
No, I actually had no idea.
Spring.
Oh God.
Okay. Last week we did our we had our atheist / materialist, and not by materialist I didn't mean that you were a material girl or boy. You didn't want to do that stuff. We're talking about stuff. We had some folk who weren't prepared, so we're going to start with you coming up and finishing those up. So if you did not, we'll start with you, Julia, and we'll go around the table this way. Because I think, oh, and Delilah, do you do shoot? Okay. So,
You want me to go?
nope, Delilah should. You ready?
No.
No? Okay.
I was just gonna. I have it, but I just wanted to fix it.
All right, Julia.
Yeah.
Julia, we will start with you.
We will?
And we'll come, yeah.
Okay.
Come on up.
So I did mine from an atheist perspective. Okay. As the news spreads that God is dead, there are many mixed emotions by everyone. As I walk and look at the streets, some people are mad. I realize these people are Catholics and Christians and many others, yelling and screaming out in the air many things. I could hear some cursing at themselves and others forever believing in God, while others were mad they never listened to people like us, who never believed that there was an almighty and eternal God. I have a small smile on my face, knowing that people wish they would have listened to us atheists long before this all happened. I look away from the rage to see people weeping while entering their homes. I guess that they are the people that wish that God was still here so they could pray to Him or ask for help. As they enter their homes, I see the angry mob chasing them in, probably because they are trying to convince the sad to stop weeping for something so stupid. I agree with this, for as I go and join the happy, I think to myself that these people should have expected this to happen one day or the next. They were so blind, thinking that a God like that existed. They were such retards to think that, and now they must open their eyes to the truth. But it seems like they can't. The guilt of hearing that God is dead is too much for them to handle. Knowing that a book that says all about the great things God did was most definitely a lie. They will probably hide in their homes for many years until they accept that God is dead. Some might not even believe it until they die and see for themselves that God is no longer there. As I join the group of the happy, I know that I was right. I don't have to rage at myself or at others for believing in some almighty person that never was all that mighty. I'm not weeping in my home because someone who I trusted and put all my faith into is now gone. I can continue to live my life like normal, except I can live it knowing that I was right all along. No more worries with people telling me that I have to believe and that God will do all these great things. I can live in peace now, calm and in peace.
Only 5 sentences.
Hope the Facebook page doesn't get flagged for that.
You guys actually have some fans. We've got some congregation members who go on the YouTube to watch you guys. They love the stuff you guys do, so they like the class.
Disgusting.
Applause.
Go ahead. Next.
Yay!
Okay, that's just 5 seconds.
That's fine.
Yeah, so's mine.
Okay, I did it from a materialist perspective. So, it finally happened. Jesus, the supposedly Son of God, is dead. All of my predictions were right all along. Because he is dead, it just proves that Jesus was never God or any of that sort. Plus, all of this is good news to me because I can finally get back into my old business and earn a lot of money.
Finding the other kind of materialism if we can. What? Oh, okay, so hold on to it. Take it. All right. Next one around. Is that you are?
I've like written it.
That's right. Who's next? Vicky? Oh, okay. You were absent last week, so we'll give you a pass. Go ahead. August.
Pivot.
Wallet? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Pivot, sorry.
Pivot.
Hey, do you computers next?
Hey, Pietro. Pivot.
What's up, babe?
That was, oh.
What? Okay, so mine is from the perspective of like a former Christian turned atheist.
Okay, deconstructing.
Okay. So, God was a hateful, sick, angry, selfish person who merely was just mortal after all. How could a just God let all this happen to us humans? I bet he's enjoying our suffering, but once he saw us catching on to his ill intentions and found a way to die. He found a way to die. I think the stuff he provided us with on earth is more valuable than any of that heaven baloney. I hope every human, just as I, can open their eyes and see the world as it truly is, a place for us to live.
Okay. All right.
He did. This is the one for last week, right?
Yep, one from last week.
Alright, God is dead, so most of his laws were not true. I knew it. So now we could all live a free and fun life, basically with no punishment when we die. Mine is like technically like an angry atheist.
That's fine.
Finally, his life has come to an end. If this God of yours was so powerful, he would still be alive, right? Like celebrities and regular humans, their fate is death, just like his, because he was nothing more than a no-life only.
Thank you. Oh, you fell on there. Go ahead.
Okay, so, as an atheist, so I'm happy, honestly. Now that you're gone, I don't have to worry about these whiny Christians pushing their religion on me. How powerful were you really if you weren't immortal? Now I can finally live in peace without the burden of everyone making me feel guilty about not believing in you.
You have your job on the
It's
same one?
kind of messy, though. If you were to rewrite it,
Okay,
I
type it up,
can't
type
do
it up and
that.
email it to
Yeah.
All right, so we'll go the opposite direction now. We're going to reverse gears. This is your eulogy by God for humanity. Okay, so this is our sign for this week. So let's see how creative you are. If you put on God's hat, let's see how you think God speaks. And it was truly not planned. that you would do this the same week that you were going to read Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. So I'm really interested to see where y'all go with this. Sure. So we're going to start, let's see. Ian, we're going to start with you. And go around the table this way.
Okay.
Okay?
Interesting.
Never seen that one.
Starting in the middle.
If you don't have it, I can print it up. All right. Go ahead.
How I mourn the loss of my greatest creation, the man, the one who I made in my image, the one who I designed to tend the earth. What a magnificent garden he could have made, what wondrous things he could have created and sculpted with his hands of dirt. Alas, they are gone, reduced to dust from which I created them, all because of that worm who long ago was chief among my messengers. Through his lies I have lost my masterpiece. Through his lies I have lost my children.
All right.
How have I lost thee to mine enemy's clutches? For what purpose didst you refuse my love? My precious creations, so good in mine eyes, are lost to the enticing malice of Lucifer's empty promises. Much good could have been achieved if thou hadst listened to me. Lives preserved, wars prevented, minds and hearts turned toward the stewardship of my creation and fellowship with me. But thou did not follow me through that, and through that misstep, all was lost. I grieve to see the agony that ye put yourselves through by following your own path, and now am sorrowful and angered to see the agony you face now that I have, pained though I was to do so, passed judgment over your lonely state. By your death I have lost my greatest creation, my beautiful children, to a fate I could have prevented if you had let me shelter thee. And as a parent grieves the loss of their child, so do I grieve the loss of all of my children.
That's really good.
It's embarrassing what I have
Really good.
I feel bad for everybody.
It's always embarrassing whenever she reads anything.
Yeah, she said thee.
She's a real public.
She said me thing. She said thee.
Okay, Anna.
Okay, I warned them many times, yet they still did not listen to my warnings. They could have lived peacefully in paradise if only they trusted me and listened to me. I kept warning my children to stay away from that tree because there was something evil there, yet they still did not listen to me. If only they had trusted me and listened to me, if only.
All right.
Okay, so I want to say I kind of wrote this more if God would be more in a human form, so I could capture the emotion more. And I think that made it really depressing. Okay. As I stand here and watch my beloved world crumble and burn, I feel a tear slowly slide down my face. It's heartbreaking to see all go down like this. The world could have done so much more than it did. It could have become such an advanced place with technology like no other. Yet in the end, people refused to get along. I saw people start wars everywhere. The whole world started to fight instead of finding peace. I look away, not able to stand another second watching it all go down. I feel as if a part of me is being burned and destroyed. I wanted to stop it a long while ago, but I saw that I was too late. It was already too far gone to save my precious world. As more tears slowly slid down my face, I felt myself start to regret not fixing some things about humans. I thought to myself, I could have done more, I should have done more, yet I just stand there and watching it all be destroyed while trying not to think about all the guilt starting to form on my shoulders. I decide to look one last time at my once amazing paradise as I see the last bit of life is destroyed. I feel as more tears start forming, so I decide to leave because I must retry and not make the same mistakes.
now, depressed.
Okay, Alice.
Because they're good.
My beloved, you may be gone now, but you'll never be forgotten. Even after your first fall, I had hope in you. After everything, I forgave you still. I stayed with you through everything, and I believed in you when no one else did. You have no idea how it felt to lose you. Oh, what you could have been. You sinned greatly, but how willingly I would have redeemed you. I loved you so much more than you could ever know. Never did I stop caring for you, and I never will. And even though I've lost you, my unconditional love will flow to you evermore.
That was more depressing than Julius.
All right,
Concise
Delilah.
and painful. Good stuff.
Okay, okay. I love you and I always have. I'll always forgive you and you know that. Oh, sorry. What? I've always forgave you, but if you hadn't fallen, you could have been perfect. I appreciate all the love you've given me, and I'll miss you, my wonderful children. I'll never forget you.
Mine is like nowadays if it happened like today.
Okay.
I saw this coming from the beginning of time on earth, but I am still disappointed in humanity. Everyone was just focused on money, love, and material things. If you just paid attention to my word and the Christian way to live, and the light and joy to have in the way I created you, you could have completed many things and ended up in heaven with me and the family of God. Thank you.
Okay, so I didn't do this one wrong. But, so I wrote this if God was like really like mean to humanity, like it's
Angry guy.
okay, so humanity was a hateful, sick, greedy, selfish, dangerous, evil, nasty, rough, ugly, vicious, vile, miserable, petty, and vulgar people. They would mock me, rebel against me, and not even believe in me. I once said, "Let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea and the birds of the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on the earth, and all the small animals that scurry along the ground, for a reason. It is a shame some of them can't rejoice for eternity. Instead, they will burn forever."
You didn't have it dangling over the fire.
Because he said he did it from God's standpoint. That's crazy. Okay, it's just God. So, I loved them all dearly and showed them care and affection, yet they still turned their backs on me. With everything I provided for them, they still mock me and use my name in vain, up till their deaths. I warned them of the things to come, and if they only would have listened to me, they could have been living all their best lives here with me, all living their best lives and the prime of their lives. But all this time was wasted. They could have accomplished a world of the saved, but it has turned into a world of the damned. Sons and daughters I have lost. All of them I have loved. All of them I have cared for and made in the image of me. They never wanted the likeness of me.
It's nice you guys can do it next week. Because you weren't here. Anthony, you're up for that.
I don't think I have them.
That would be the bus going over you.
Humanity. One of my greatest achievements. Some of the worst careless, closed-minded creations I've ever made. Killing each other without real cause, focusing on themselves and what others think of them. This greed and vanity is their downfall. This race is a dark, sitting, and fallen creation.
But there is light amongst the darkness. The ability to revise and to learn. Tough times make good men. Good make easy times. Easy times make weak men, and weak men make tough times. This endless cycle is how they advanced, looking for a reason. And many good men believed in me, so I gave them humanity's greatest tool, hope. It is what gives them the courage to win against evil. 'Twas what I gave Adam after I evicted him from Eden. And as Noah had the will and grit to survive, so shall humanity survive. I may strive for the advancement of my creations. And I have placed humanity there to grow and learn, to give this small providence in the Lanikia, in the ever-expanding universe. These people are destined to one day become greater than they ever imagined. But there will always be a struggle. Yet it can always be overcome.
So, Adam and Eve messed up. Granted, they were tempted by Satan, but they still doomed humanity. I guess I'm going to have to send Jesus down there to die for them. Hopefully then they can finally not sin. You know, I feel kind of empty. The Romans have killed my son, a part of me. This was supposed to stop all of the sinning, yet it just continues. It didn't have to be this way. Humanity could have been the perfect civilization, but it seems that perfection is something that you can never create.
We all have depression.
How could you not do this in Saturday? I'm sorry. If you think about it, it's the death.
Mine was probably the least.
Okay.
Anthony, yours is like the
Nice work. I didn't do one.
Oh, good catch.
Arigato. All right. So, I thought that was really interesting to hear you guys and your different perspectives on this. I know you were playing a part with both of them, but it was fantastic to see you guys stretch out a little bit. Last week I kind of went over some of the things I was picking out as I heard you going. Here were some themes that kind of came out in a lot of them about humanity being God's greatest creation, or pinnacle of creation, or best invention. The lies of Satan, the empty promises. Someone used that phrase. That was a really good one. The promises are there, but in the end we try them out and we realize they don't work. One thing a lot of you focused on was the agony over lost opportunities and the waste. The waste that was there. And I think that points beautifully to was it last week or the week before we talked about humanity being made in God's image, where you have that idea that He has power, ultimate power, we have less power. But we still have some power, and we can do some good with it. You brought that out in the last one there. Talk about perfection. And Anthony, you talked about the light amongst the darkness. A lot of you focused on the love piece, except you. He was going in for the roasting. All right. Lost love and remembrance was a big theme. Was that because of the sonnet of the Shakespeare? I you guys were just echoing with that one. But I heard some echoes of the sonnets in there that you guys are doing with Shakespeare. So did any of you other stuff jump out at you guys when you heard someone else what they were writing? No, sorry. She knows what that reference goes for.
I thought there's a song. Some were just so compassionate, and some were more reflecting and reflectful.
Yeah.
The different tones are rich.
Like the huge, vast variety of things. We have Elizabeth with kind of poem type material, with the emo, the Batman version.
Kind of this sad, though. I was also just having a reference to Garden of Venus. Instead of reading Paradise Lost and spending a lot of time in that this year, just that's really, obviously it's logical as to what happened and where we're at now with the downfall of mankind, rapidly extended forever.
Yeah, without going down a rabbit hole, whether you take the story of the Garden of Eden to be literal and you find it as a place on the map, or whether you find it as a story from before time, the fall of humanity is a crucial piece of a Christian worldview. Really important piece. And it's a turn that can go a couple different directions, as we're going to talk about today. But it does help us understand, depending on how we understand that turn, is going to really affect our view of other human beings. Any other perspectives?
I think it's interesting that kind of some people took it as like God standing back and watching the world fall, like basically kind of fall to ruin in and of itself by things like war and stuff like that. Like really, and then some people took it as a true eulogy, like something that somebody says in specific remembrance of something because they loved it. Like all of them communicate, other than Mateo's, that same idea of like grieving the loss. You did that intentionally. It's not cutting you down. It's just a statement.
She's not finding fault.
But like Addie and Delilah both wrote there's truly as like a being said over the person as they're being buried or at a funeral service, and some people took it as like a God standing back and watching as his creation falls to ruin. I thought it was just kind of an interesting way to see it.
Different approaches to it, yeah. A lot of it.
Kind of
So I heard, I didn't hear much of, but I heard a tiny bit of your discussion on sinners in the hands of an angry God. I truly mean this. Mrs. Jenkins and I don't plan these things. They just kind of end up coming at the right time together. What do you think? What do you think of Edwards? I heard Mrs. Jenkins talk about it, but I didn't hear any of you guys. Where were you at on that? Like, do you think his picture of God is correct in whole or in part? How do you see him? There's no wrong answer. This is a personal question.
Go ahead. I see him more loving and caring. Yeah, he has to be strict, but it's like really good teachers. They're strict and like they're a little bit scary, right? But they're such caring people, and then you just want to work with them. So it's kind of like seeing God as our
okay.
Yeah, I think that Edwards wrote it like fighting back against the idea that like God just wants to go through everything you want, and like God is very much like a coddling parent figure or grandparent figure, and he was like, no, God is harsher than that. And the problem, exactly. I think he went like too far to the other end of the spectrum. Where he's like, no, God doesn't want to help you. God wants to hurt you. It's like to me, I don't personally agree with it because I see God as more like he's the parent, like he's truly our father, where he's like you messed up really badly. Stop it!
Or like God's like that friend that whacks all the sense into you.
Exactly.
Like that story you told on Sunday of I putting like that's like God to us. Like
yeah, my best friend Tom was an idiot when he drank in college. Yep. Anyone other perspectives?
Macarons.
Yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong. I'm just asking the question.
I feel like, yes, God isn't like a super soft, like, oh, I'll let that pass. Like, he does have some like anger, not like anger, like righteous anger towards like what we do, and like, and he doesn't hate us like he hates like the sin that we do.
Okay.
So he's like, so I'm not agreeing with this guy. I'm just saying like there is just the tiniest bit of truth to it. Like God isn't like he's not like that one friend that just is fine with you doing anything and like irresponsibly, but he's kind of like holding you responsible for it.
He's kind of a parent whose child was out past curfew, basically.
Yeah.
Like, very much not happy to be willing to forgive you, but only if you repent.
It's because he loves us.
Yeah, so basically, I think we can also we agree on principle of, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong with this, but I think everybody kind of agrees in principle. God, like, Edward was right in his basic premise that God is not happy with us.
But he went a little bit off base in the fact that he's acts like God doesn't want to love us and forgive us, because why else would he send Jesus?
I feel like God's more aggravated with us than raging at us for giving.
Basically, God's peeved, but he's not that.
Yeah, like, because like everyone after a while, like of like just storing up like all their aggravation, like snaps or something. But like I don't feel like they like start raging, like he described it. So
Edward's God sounds like a bully to me. Like he sounds like the big kid on the playground who basically tells everybody, "You can do this, you can't do that. You cross me, I'm gonna hurt you."
Yeah.
And then people who follow him come off more as like those capable kids who basically they don't want to get hurt by the big bully on the playground, so they side with him rather than standing up for themselves. Which is a problem because we're supposed to follow God and love him, not love him out of fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, I think I said something like that. Say it again. He's kind of saying we should love God because he could just kill you at any second. But I feel like God wants us to love him because he loves us.
Okay.
Basically, he says, praise if your life depends on it.
Yeah.
yeah, because like, I feel like from both of you said we shouldn't be like loving God in fear. We should love him because he puts trust in us. So he's like trying to like tell us like I trust you, so like you can trust me and love me because I won't like hurt you.
Isn't that like John? Isn't that John?
Say it.
You love because I love first or something.
You have it hanging in your home. I noticed you got a little thing you can attach. It says we love. Yeah, in the Gospel of John it says, in John's first letter it says we love because he first loved us. Like you learn how to love from the way God loves. Yeah. It's interesting. Lisa, are they going to be doing 19th century literature in here? Or maybe next year. One of the things that you guys know about the sermon that you read is that it kicked off what was called the Great Awakening, right? Or the Second Great Awakening. I'm trying to remember which one was it.
First. Second Great Awakening happens in
that was
the early
later.
19th century.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
It's
Yeah.
getting close to it.
Yeah.
First Great Awakening.
So this kicks off a revival. People are scared by this sermon, and they jump in. What's interesting, by the time you get to the 19th century, through upstate New York, you get a second Great Awakening, really kind of washes across that. But you also have the birth of Unitarianism, where it's not only God is very permissive to the point you were making. What you said, Pietro, he's like, he's not your friend who just lets you do anything. Not only is God your friend who lets you do anything, all gods are the same God. So like it's all just faces on God. But of course, all the different religions disagree about what that face is hiding, what that mask is covering. All these things are going on at the same time. And when you read the 19th century writers, all the great writers of 19th century literature from America, Herman Melville, Moby Dick, right? Nathaniel Hawthorne, The House of Seven Gables. All these people are coming out of, they were like the children raised by this, under this, like their parents went to these revivals, and all of a sudden these people came out and they were like going the opposite direction because God became the guy who was scary. Did you tell them about your friend from England?
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So where I got tired of saying I love you to a God who really wanted to fry me. I was like trying to pay him off to get him to not do that. So that you'll see that in a really intellectual way in these different books. The Scarlet Letter, of course, being a big one. You see the side of it. Someone used to use the language of bully for God in that thing. What happens? You guys, I don't know how much training you've had in this or reading this. What happens to people who are bullied? Yeah, they usually become bullies, but only to the people who are weaker than them. You're fawning to the one above you in what's called mammals in general and human beings in particular organize ourselves in dominance hierarchies. First thing you do when you get together with a new group, you're not doing it consciously, but the first thing you do is, who's going to be in charge here? Who's going to decide what game we play, right? Or whatever. There's nothing wrong with it. you can't have more than 2 people function together until someone's in charge. 3 people can't make a decision. No, someone has to kind of call the ball. There's nothing wrong with it. But what happens when you get a bullying situation is you fawn towards the person above you and you're mean to the people below you, so they know that you're in charge of them. And so it goes on down the ladder. And I think that's what they experience. That's what you see in the Scarlet Letter when you see that. That essentially, yes, she makes a mistake. She commits adultery, has a baby, but the culture beats her up for years instead of offering her forgiveness and love, because that's kind of where they thought God was in it. So, and this is so now truth-telling time. How many of you read the quotes from last week? Okay, I didn't think so. I just thought I'd check. Remember, I always put those in there because they're a good resource for you. As whatever assignment I give you this week, they're going to be a resource. But I love what Chesterton. You got 3 quotes from Chesterton last week because I love Chesterton. And this first quote he says, "Men are moved by their religion, especially when it is irreligion." So, irreligion meaning the first set of eulogies we were offering, right? The anti-religious eulogies. That can be your religion. Your religion can be to dislike God or dislike God followers. I have a friend like that from high school. He was our valedictorian. He basically goes around to exhibitions and takes pictures of himself next to like Darwin symbols, and he puts up nasty things that Christians say and stuff like this.
Very mature.
Yeah, he wouldn't talk to me at our reunion a couple years ago. So I think, we are, another way that this has been said by somebody else is we become like what we worship. So that's where it becomes really, really important to have not just a Bible, but an accurate view of the stories it's telling. That's what Bible study is for. The reason you guys, none of us will master the Bible. It's just, there's too much there. But the reason we do Bible studies and we pull on the wisdom of people who've been reading it a lot longer than us is that we start to have a more accurate view. Now, people can make mistakes for a very long time. And clearly that the fact that we've had these disputes going on in church history means that people are genuinely making mistakes. So what it means is we have to enter into the conversation. We listen, we speak. We listen, we speak. And in the meantime, we pray and try to hear the voice of God leading us in the right direction as we do. So I have a question for you then. What do you think the phrase wrath of God means? Because it appears all over the Bible.
Like the power of God?
Okay. What else?
So like ignorance is like one Bible verse says don't stir up wrath or people go. That's not what it says, but it says wrath, so I'm thinking
There's a point that I think.
Okay.
Like there's a movement that comes out in the form of anger.
Other ideas? Other elements of it?
Like the reign of God?
Okay, reign of God, yeah. I'm sorry, someone else?
So in one of the songs, he sings like the wrath of God was satisfied through like the death of Jesus.
Oh yeah, I think that's from In Christ Alone. Yeah.
Christ Alone.
Yeah. The wrath of God. Yeah. When on the cross Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. So here's where kind of the rubber hits the road. We've talked about this before. When the Bible uses phrases like that, what is it doing? We talked about this, I think, was it last week we talked about anthropomorphic language or the week before? So anthropomorphic language, or theomorphic language for us. What is it doing here? When we say God has wrath or he's wrathful, does that mean the same thing when we say a human being is? Is it similar? Do you ever see someone get angry for the right reason? Just like maybe you have yourself, right? Any of these things part of it when you're doing it? Maybe not raining. Most of us don't get the chance to do that.
As fun as it would be.
But there's anger. There's at least the desire to exert power. Even if you feel like you're in the weaker position and don't do anything, fists come up and you do this. I'll never forget. I'm going to tell a story about you. Him getting off the school bus. Was it kindergarten? No, first grade. There was a girl on this kindergarten bus. She was very difficult. There's no doubt. She had behavioral issues and probably emotional issues. But the other kids were picking on her. And Ian was real placid by this point, kind of like he is now. He was very chill. And
he was not as a small child.
He was not when he was tiny, but yeah, he was chill by this point. But he gets off the bus and his fists are balled up and he's literally shaking. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong? He's like, they were being so mean to that girl, Dad. You know, and
You're gonna get that. You're gonna get it for that during lunch.
So there was anger there, and you know, I had my spiritual director for many years. He was from Texas. I called him my Remember the Alamo spiritual director, and he used to tell his kids, all four of them. He had 3 boys and a girl. He told all 4 of them. He said, "There's only 2 ways you're going to get in trouble when you come home from school, and I hear that you've been in a fight. One is if you started it. The second is if you back down and it was a good cause." Said and I told this to Ian. I remember saying it when that whole incident happened. I said, you will always have your dad come defend you if you're defending the innocent, right? So, power, anger, all this is true. Here's my question for you, and I think Pietro, you alluded to it before. This anger of God, is it directed at sinners, or is it directed at sin?
I think it's more directed towards sin itself, because, well, if the wrath of God, which is sin, was satisfied when Jesus died on the cross, all the sin was removed from the sinners themselves. So.
Okay.
God wants to save the sinners by removing their sin. God, I think, he loves humanity, but he does not, so he can't accept humanity in a sinful way. Or he can't accept the sinful ways of humanity, not humanity in a way.
Sure. What would it look like if God accepted sin as well as sinners? How would heaven be any different than here if we could take our sin with us?
There's less dying?
Would it be? Would that be a blessing? Would it be great if we could hurt each other and never be an end to that?
I feel like it would cause more havoc than peace. Because then I feel like people would be like, oh, we can sin because God's okay with us sinning, so it's all okay and we can do whatever we want and we can break into stores or do all these bad deeds and no one's gonna punish us. We'll go to paradise no matter what when we die. So.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Because on one hand you'll have people doing that, but then after how long? I mean, it's not gonna be it would be perfect, but after how long would people just get bored of it and being like, okay, we had our fun, now we'll be back to good people.
But,
I mean, it's not always like that. Even right now, when we have God's laws in place, people still go out, murder, they go and steal, they commit all those sorts of crimes. But when you're given the okay, what would you rather do, sneak out without permission, or just have your parents know that you're sneaking out and they're like, all right, just be safe, and that's it. Which one is more thrilling to you? And after how long, of just leaving with them knowing, are you like, okay, this is boring, I don't want to sneak out anymore?
Because he making it permissible discourages this action.
Pretty much.
But I feel like I know what you mean, but after a while people were just continuously sinning, they'd probably get bored of it. But
you have new ways of doing it.
Yeah, you have to think that there's those people who will go out of their way to find something to make something less boring or find something new. And also there's those people who like sinning is just so easy for them that like they never get bored of it. So and like they probably teach other people how not to be bored of sinning because they've been doing it for so long that like I understand what you mean by like people will get bored after a while, but I only feel like only part of the people would get bored after a while, and like the part which like has been sinning for so long would still find it interesting. Because there's so many things to do to sin that I feel like even just like to get like to do all of those bad deeds, it would like take so long that like all the like new deeds like all the old ones can become new again.
Basically, they'll go in and out of fashion.
Yeah.
For all of eternity.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's almost like, car doors. It's only there to keep the innocent people innocent, and those who want to rob cars will still keep on robbing cars because they don't care about the property itself. They just want to get the value. So, instead of almost being like that, like, if you see, we outlawed every other car except for Jeeps without the doors on, after how long would people just, no longer want to rob cars because it's way too easy?
Basically, people just get bored.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the realities that you see as a pastor about sin is that it has an addictive quality to it. That it can, the appetite can start like this and it has to grow. A person has to become more and more depraved to get the same rush out of the evil they want to commit. In Tortured for Christ, which is the memoirs of Richard Wurmbrand, in the movie they show this. It comes from his memoirs, but he had a torturer who tortured him for years in Romania. He was captured because he was brought in because he was a Christian, but he was a Christian who spoke out. And this guy tortured him for years. And at one point in his torturing, he said to him, "I thank the God in whom I do not believe that all the evil I want can come out of me, and I will never be punished for it." So if you talk about a place where you can't die, imagine being able, but you could still be cut and hurt and all that stuff. You can be chopped into little bits, but all those little bits can't die. They can just experience pain. And someone's addiction reaches that level, where that's the rush they need. You guys, in some of your darker anime, if you see the character who gets addicted to cruelty, Oberon, for those of you who are SAO fans. Okay. He gets a rush out of hurting other people, and it can become like that. Over the long haul, we become like the thing we worship, and if what we think about all the time is what is our sin, we become like it. Christians have always been told, at least there's an old saying, love the sinner, hate the sin. That reflects what we think God does with us. And what's fascinating is that Paul says that on the cross, Jesus becomes, he doesn't say he sacrificed for our sins. He says Jesus becomes sin for our sake. And that's why the wrath of God can be aimed at the sin and not the sinner. And Jesus can bear all of that for us, but he's not being punished on our behalf. You only punish children to correct them, right? If these are your children, you don't want to punish them. You're not trying to punish them to send them to hell, to beat them up. You're trying to punish them so they can learn. But sin needs to be corrected. God's wrath is directed at it because even though we love each other, we hurt each other. You guys have probably hurt each other's feelings with an unguarded comment or something like that. Imagine when I'll tell you a story to end our time today. And then the stuff I gave you in the handout, save your handout. We're going to work on it next week, okay? We're not going to get to it today. The piece that, so you don't have any homework for next week. Okay. A friend or a person I know adopted a child who'd been abused horribly for the first 5 years of his life. He'd been raped constantly. one day when she was preparing dinner, she heard this shouting from the other room, and he was 9 by this point, was trying to rape her 7-year-old. Now, did she understand why this kid had this built into him now after all the years and all the abuse he'd experienced? Yes, she did. Was she angry on behalf of her child? Yeah. Now imagine God sees us doing that to each other constantly. You're angry at the child who's being hurt, and your understanding of the child who's been hurt and is turning around and hurting in kind. The way God, and you guys reflected it beautifully in your eulogies, as a human being, we feel like there's nothing I can do. God stepped into the equation and became our sin, so that the wrath he has to pour out, he can take himself, because our shoulders aren't big enough. So we don't end on a note like that.
Very dark.
Oh, it shouldn't be dark. It's lovely, right? I mean, God's going to take what we can't take. But that's the source of joy for Christians. You guys are reading Shakespeare right now. You guys have seen the drama things, right? You have the two masks, right? One is sad, one's happy, right? Tragedy and comedy. And I think I've said this to you guys before, but I love one of the Shakespeare scholars I know says the difference between tragedy and comedy in Shakespeare is that at the end of a tragedy, everyone is dignified and dead. At the end of a comedy, everyone's an idiot and they're alive. Okay? I mean, by the end, what's my favorite scene in all of Shakespeare's comedies is Beatrice and Benedict when they whip out the love poems they've written to each other. It's hysterical. Because they're going, I don't like her, I don't like him, oh no, let me read their love poem, okay? And they're idiots at that moment. But they all laugh, they get married, and everyone lives happily ever after. It makes for a beautiful ending to the show. This is, G.K. Chesterton's talking about this. He's talking about joy, and why for Christians, comedy is king, not tragedy. The world is not tragic for us. We at the end of the day say, we're idiots, but we're all going to live. It's okay. So these are the quotes you didn't read last week, but we're going to have some fun with them. So to the pagan, the small things are as sweet as the small brooks breaking out of the mountain, but the broad things are as bitter as the sea. When the pagan looks at the very core of the cosmos, he's struck cold. Behind the gods who are merely despotic sit the fates who are deadly. Nay, the fates are worse than deadly, they're dead. And when rationalists say that the ancient world was more enlightened than the Christian from their point of view, they're right. For when they say enlightened, they mean dark with incurable despair. What was put the pieces together now. What's the Enlightenment sparked by? The Renaissance and then the Enlightenment. What do they rediscover?
The classics.
Ancient philosophy. This is what he's talking about. The ancient world was more enlightened than the modern world in this way. That's what because it agreed with us. When he says that they love the small things, what do you mean? I heard a comedian one time say, you just have to get used to the fact in life that you'll never really be happy. You smoke the cigarette, you drink the drink, and then you wake up in the morning and life sucks again. Okay? That's what one comedian said. That's a tragic worldview. That's what he's talking about here. He goes on to say, it is profoundly true that the ancient world was more modern than the Christian. The common bond is in the fact that ancients and moderns both have been miserable about existence, about everything. Well, the medievals were actually happy about that, at least. I freely grant that the pagans, like the moderns, were only miserable about everything. They were quite jolly about everything else. I concede that the Christians of the Middle Ages were only at peace about everything, and they were at war about everything else. The mass of men have been forced to be gay about the little things, but sad about the big ones. Nevertheless, and I offer my last dogma defiantly, it is not native to man to be so. Man is more himself, man is more manlike when joy is the fundamental thing in him, and grief the superficial. Joy, which was the small publicity of the pagan, is the gigantic secret of the Christian. And as I close this chaotic volume, I open again the strange small book. Sorry. I always do this. The strange small book from which all Christianity came, and I'm again haunted by a kind of confirmation. The tremendous figure which fills the Gospels towers in this respect, as in every other, above all the thinkers who ever thought themselves tall. His pathos was natural, almost casual. The Stoics, ancient and modern, were proud of concealing their tears. He never concealed his tears. He showed them plainly on his open face at any daily sight, such as the far sight of his native city. Yet he did conceal something. Solemn supermen and imperial diplomats are proud of restraining their anger. He never restrained his anger. He flung furniture down the front of the steps of the temple and asked men how they expected to escape the damnation of hell. Yet he restrained something. Sorry, I'll make it. Yeah. I say it with reverence. There was in that shattering personality a thread that must be called shyness. There was something that he hid from all men when he went up on a mountain to pray. There was something that he covered constantly by abrupt silence or impetuous isolation. There was something that was too great for God to show us when he walked upon the earth. And I have sometimes fancied that it was his mirth. So I offer that to you guys, not because it's the Bible, but because it puts in context all this other stuff. We saw the wrath of God when Jesus took curtain cords and turned them into a whip and drove the money changers out of the temple who were making it into a commerce rather than prayer. We saw the love, we saw the weeping of God when he came to the tomb of his friend Lazarus and he was dead. We see in God emotions that dwarf ours by comparison. But we see in the cross that underneath all of those is joy, and all of those is love. All right, so you guys have a great lunch.
Well, that
See you
was
next
deep.
week. Well, I hope it was a higher note to end on the other.
We all kind of have like deep papers and stuff, so.
It was a good day for that. So next week we're going to look at, I heard you talk about Calvinism, and we're going to show you what the opposite was, Arminianism.
Actually, for pastors, calls when he says salvation, he believe in sacrifice,
Yeah.
Not getting back.